Yay, back in studio. I think I'm over COVID, Ron. It's John with the Bingham boys, John Saltas, and Ron Yengich sitting across from me, who I haven't seen for a couple weeks. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Johnny. How you doing?
Better. I don't know why, but I'm a cursed Bingham boy. I'm always sick or sore.
We call you the Typhoid Mary of the Bingham boys.
I know. We'll have Typhoid Larry in a little while in the show, maybe.
Good, I hope so.
Yeah. Hey, anyway, good to be in here. It's good to be outside. Good not to hack and be sore. How was your week?
It was good. I was in Minnesota, but before we go there, how was your week other than getting better?
Well, I was doing really good. I did have one. It was a good and bad day. On Saturday, we decided, my son and parts of my family were up camping, where we always camp. We've been there since the middle 60s at the North Fork of the Duchesne River, in and around what most people just refer to as DeFay's Dude Ranch.
Right. Up
and down that canyon. That long ago we've been going there. And the family still keeps the tradition, but he couldn't go the whole weekend, so I was just going to go up and back. So we did. And, you take the drive over Wolf Creek Pass. We used to call that the shorter route. And it always has been shorter, but it was really a ride because it was a dirt road forever. I mean, it was a really washboardy, rutted, water, cricky dirt road that you just really couldn't get over, which was good because it protected that side of the western Uinta Mountains from being overrun. Now it's all paved. But going over, and people have done this, going over, know how pretty it is up there, but this time it was burnt, and I'd not seen it. And last year when we went up, it wasn't burnt, and then there was a fire in October of last year. I think the yellow lake fire, they called it. And it burned from one side of Wolf Creek over Soapstone, down, up and over, Duchesne Ridge into the North Fork drainage. It's a real mess. And it struck me, looking at that, where was Governor Cox and his rakes?
Yeah.
Why wasn't he raking the forest like he's been instructed to do?
Right.
Doesn't he know good forest fire prevention, this guy? He's our governor.
He's our governor, but he is only governor for raking when it's somebody else that's supposed to do it.
Like Newsom, then he'll mock the California fires and praise the fact that our president doesn't send good resources there to fight that because, of course, it's a blue state. But curiously, that fire was 33,000 acres last year. The fire in the fire in Palisades this year was 28,000 acres. And Palisades fire in California, 16,000 residences or buildings or structures were destroyed. That's the fire where Trump famously said, well, I turned on the water spigot up in Northern California and sent all the water down there. Good God. Anyway, how can they have fires there when there's an ocean right there? Don't they have the water to put it out? And you think of it, but for the grace of God, there were no structures up there in Wolf Creek Pass, right?
Right.
And we have this odd sense that bad things can only happen to blue state people. It's happening right here, and there's another one in southern Utah right now, burning structures left and right, and it's like, okay, but watch when California burns again.
But the thing about it is that, wildfires in the West are a historic problem, but they're worse now because of climate change. And many of those people, the red state operators, deny climate change anyway. Anybody with any sense knows that it's happening, and that's part of why we're having the serious fires. We look at, in America right now, the only thing that counts is when you can put a money value on destruction. So if there's destruction and it goes through a particular area and there are a lot of homes lost or things like that, that's a tragedy, and it is a tragedy. But there also is a tragedy in these wildfires that burn out of control in the West primarily, but Canada is having problems with them too, and also we're having problems in some of the Midwestern states with big fires that are burning. They're burning forests that are important to us in ways that most people don't understand, and that I don't understand all that well, but it's like clearing the rainforest. It's like doing that. It does impact our well-being in this country. They are natural resources that are important. They're not only important for the money that we can get out of them, they're important because they're a big part of the structure of our habitat, and where not only wild animals live, but where we can go to recreate if we do it right. that is not considered a big deal if a bunch of that burns by a lot of people. But I think it is to also a lot of other people who recognize that this is a great country, not simply because of the people. We talk about that a lot. But it's, and not just because of the resources that we can turn into money, but because of the beauty of the country. You know, the song "This Land Is Your Land" by Woody Guthrie is really a hymn to that about the United States of America. And I see that kind of taking off on that a bit is that Donnie has decided that he's going to stop all the wind turbines off the coasts, and that power that is generated by nature itself. And yeah, it is a problem for some people, but it really is a means for us to have power which we need to be generated really in a sense by nature itself and in the best way. But we're going to stop that because it doesn't attune to his idea, which is what? The only good that comes from anywhere is how much money you can get out of it. I reject that. I reject that as an ethic, and I think more and more people should give it some consideration. People that know a lot more than I do about it have written about it, and those of you that are listeners ought to try to find out a little bit about that, a little bit more than I could ever explain.
Well, that's what we said in I think it was the first podcast. We're veterans now. Number 9.
Yeah,
we're going to be double digits next week.
We're
Oh,
veterans.
God. Do we get a pension?
No, we don't get a pension.
No. We need a sponsor.
We do need a sponsor.
We'll call the Woodland Fire Department to be our sponsor after this show. But the fire was, what I said is that we need a new scorecard. And you're right. As long as money's a scorecard, guys that are just normal people aren't going anywhere. And people that don't think they're affected by that have got to really wake up, because the money isn't big money. It's like incredible wealth money that controls anything. And if you got that extra, 4-wheeler or something, that doesn't make you a 1%er. That just makes you slightly more in debt than I am and able to pay for it right now. And it ain't going to last forever.
It isn't going to last forever, in part because we build obsolescence into most everything we build these days, too. I mean, that's a big part of it. I admire people, and I'm not one of them. I admired my father. My father did work on his own car, and he worked on my Volkswagen that I had when I lived at home. My brother gave me my first car, and I could do a little bit of work on that. I can't work on anything. My carpentry skills are legendarily poor. My dad used to say when I would be his carpenter's helper, "Look, I want you like what?
Stand over there and get out of my way."
No, but my dad actually said this to me one time.
Oh,
he
my
said,
God.
"I want you to, from now on, Ronnie, I want you to measure twice. And don't cut it all. After you measure twice, call me and I'll cut."
Yeah, no cut once.
Don't cut even once. So, but I admire people that can do that. And there are a lot of people that have those abilities, that they can make things last a lot longer than I could.
Well, again, that fire was big. 33,000 acres is not hay. It's bigger than that fire. 33,000 acres is all of the undeveloped land in Salt Lake County. It's over 15% of the land in Davis County. It's a big fire. But what I look at, and in retrospect, trying to make a pretty picture out of it, is that's on property that federal land, right? And
Right.
who is right now trying to sell that? Mike Lee wants to sell our federal lands. And under part of it, and we'll talk about him in more detail in a minute, but under the auspices of, this is going to be some great affordable housing. We can put some real affordable where? On that goddamn cliff that even the rock chucks are trying to get out of.
Right.
What is he talking about? You're not going to put any housing up there ever, let alone affordable.
No, and the thing is that what they're really looking at, and this is not just being critical, it's being honest. They're looking at selling it to people that are going to develop it in the distant future, but the people they're going to sell it to are the developers, who are the same people that give them money for their campaigns. I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to buy a little piece of property, I've got a piece of property in Mighton, Utah, that me and Earl...
No way.
No, we do.
You'll never guess who's buried. Mighton, Utah. I was thinking Mazer. Where's Mighton? Is in the Uinta Basin, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It's between Duchesne and Vernal. And Roosevelt, actually. Earl and I took a little piece of property for a fee a long time ago. A young woman that I represented, God bless her. And I still own that property. And Earl's Ice, my law partner, when we'd get the $30 tax assessment, every year would come in so pissed off that we hadn't gotten rid of that property yet.
Well,
and so I still own it. So anybody wants it,
you might have a buyer in me. That's my ancestral grounds.
I'll sell it to you.
If anybody's out there listening, the Caldwell family is pretty dominant out there, and I'm descendant of the Caldwells.
I think that was owned by the Caldwells.
Are you kidding? I want it back.
You want it back?
Yeah. What are you talking about? They used to run with Butch Cassidy and them.
Yeah, well.
But you're right. I mean, it's going to sell to the highest bidder. And who's that highest bidder? You've always lived outside of school. You lived in Louisville. Anywhere else? Because I'm going to ask you. I'll tell you. I lived in Chicago. Just go there, right?
Yeah.
And so if you've grown up in Utah and you're used to in 20 minutes going and finding easily accessible recreation, fishing, hunting, camping, skiing, whatever you want to do, hiking, bird watching, you name it, you can do it. Try it in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I'm just using Chicago as the reference point because as soon as you leave Chicago, it's beautiful farmland,
Right.
It's forest and all that stuff. But you get up to a lake or something, a river, you can't get near it because it's all private property. It's all cabin. It's all fenced off. You can look at it from afar and you can hang out at the local tavern, but you can't be part of it.
No, my granddaughter Gabrielle, who was on our program, was worked at a horse farm in the Lake District, which is what you're talking about. When I went there and spent some time with her, we went around to all the little lakes and the really nice areas. But you're right. I mean, that's big money. Me and you are not buying property there, and nor are most people. But that's how it always has worked. And the thing about holding this land in trust by the federal government, not state governments who are much more easy going to give it away, literally give it away, which Mike Lee wants to do and others want to do. It is held in trust for the future. We always hear politicians talking about, well, we need to cut costs and we need to reduce the budget. We need to reduce the debt for our future. You want to hold something, it just costs very little money. Maybe maintenance, which you guys keep cutting back too. They're getting rid of all of the people at the national parks. That really is the future. And it isn't the future for what's underneath it. It's for the future for what's on top. And it's for people to be able to go, those who like to camp and hike and do things like that, but also with the knowledge that, it is indeed the Purple Mountain Majesties and all of that stuff that we wax poetically about.
It's not killing just the national parks, by the way, and national monuments. It's killing the entire recreation category of Utah. If it's private land, where are you going to take that where are you going to take your boat, your four-wheeler, your recreational vehicle of any kind, your trailer, your camp? You're not.
No.
So it's going to decimate that industry while it supposedly helps another. Ron, we didn't mean to do this, but it does remind me that
interesting.
You were in the Midwest. You were in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Close enough. You saw the same thing. How was Minnesota?
Minnesota was hot. I mean, it was exceptionally hot. I was there to watch baseball, which is one of my real passions, and I was there to watch the Milwaukee Brewers, who are my team. We've talked about that. By the way, we talked a little bit about teaching people swear words from Bingham. We'll go to a non-swear word.
What?
So, remember, we mentioned that at the first. Did
we say the word? We didn't say the word.
We didn't say the word. We won't do that.
We'll hold it in suspense.
Yeah.
Or the first person to write to me at john@cityweekly.net with the word that Ron and I are thinking about from Bingham that everybody knew is the most derogatory term one could use on another person, you'll win one. No, I'll tell you what. I'm going to throw in 2 VIP tickets to Utah Beer Festival.
There you go. Well, and that's what I was going to tell you. The word brewer in Croatian is pivori. Pivori. Yeah, because the word for beer is pivo, okay? And so... In Croatian, yeah. And so I was there, but I was there and joined a Bingham guy and his wife and his son, Mark Amicone, who is the president, I think, still of the Salt Lake Bees. He works with the Miller Group and a long time...
The family's a Bingham family.
Bingham family. His grandfather... Stefano comes from Italy, and Mark and his brothers. Mark didn't grow up there. I think.
But then Amicone went to high school with my mother. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and so I think his dad certainly lived in Bingham. Really good people. Mark and Mary Kay Amicone. I'm going to throw just a real shout out to her. Retired last year as the head coach at Weber State softball, and is in the Utah Sports Hall of Fame. A great softball coach. Is the first coach at Weber State. And actually, in that conference, to take a team to the Women's World Series tournament. Did it twice. But she is also something else which is really cool. And in the Minnesota Twins guide, their guide for the team, they have a story about her. She was the first woman in the United States to coach a boys high school baseball team. She coached the Jordan Beat Diggers, my school, and she was the head coach there.
Fast pitch. Not softball.
Not softball, baseball. She was the baseball coach there for a few years before she then went back and coached softball at Salt Lake Community College and assistant coach at the U. And then Weaver, but a great lady, knows baseball great. To sit with her and Mark and talk baseball during a game was terrific. Their son Trevor, and we're going to post a picture of the three of them, who is the assistant hitting coach with the Minnesota Twins, was with your Yankees until this year, where he was the head minor league hitting instructor. Great baseball mind, just a terrific kid. Was there, so I got to meet with him, and it was just fun. But it's interesting again. When Mark and I became friends, I had played baseball against his brother, his older brother, and I didn't know that they were Bingham family. I mean, that got that knowledge, but it's just funny how it goes around. And Mark is a great guy. If we get Major League Baseball here, it will because a lot of the work that Mark has put into that.
He began with the Golden Eagles 100 years ago, and grew up through that, and the transitions into baseball with Art, was his name? Art Teese?
Teese, yeah. My brother was the first with the Deseret News sports reporter that covered the Eagles. I remember that. But anyway, great people, just a wonderful family. And their other son, Derek, works for the Salt Lake Bees, is in their administration. And
who was the coach at Woods Cross? Trevor, was it?
That was Trevor, yeah, and that's the same kid.
Yeah. He coached when my son Mikey played ball at Judge.
Yeah.
And they did well that year. They had a good year. Congratulations to Emicones.
Yeah, really, really, really good people. So I had fun. Also wandered around. I sent some pictures to you when I was wandering the city. When we were talking about Donald Trump last night, I ran into they have a Washington Monument, which so many do, and it's smaller version of the Washington Monument in D.C. And I sent a picture to you, and it had a quote from George Washington. And I think it's a good quote to compare where we once were with the father of our country and now with the bastard child of our country as president.
I think I've got it here.
Yeah.
Well, no, this is...
Yeah, let's see. I do too, but yeah, go ahead, John.
I got words, but I don't think it's a quote. Is it?
No, there's a quote that...
Vindicate our rights?
Yes. Vindicate our rights with firmness and cultivate peace with sincerity. And I think that, say it again, vindicate our rights with firmness and cultivate peace with sincerity. That last line is so applicable today in the last few days after what has happened relative to our bombing of of Iran and the lead up to that, and also to other things that I think we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I just found it interesting to run across that because George Washington believed in what was the beginning, really, the real birth pains of the United States of America. And his statement is true. You cultivate peace. You don't talk about being a peacemaker. You act like a peacemaker. And you cultivate it with other nations. And you do it not by threatening other people. You don't do it by talking how big your tanks are compared to them or their bombs. You know, I got so tired of them talking about these bunkerbuster bombs and how perfect they were. And you don't, when you take action like Trump did, and he wanted to make clear he did it, say that it's an immediate victory and you've obliterated everything, which we now know, and anybody with any sense would have known then, is BS, because you don't know what the result of any type of attack is, and until you've had the type of intelligence that comes back with people actually going there or seeing that or having hands-on and eyes-on reports. And so I think it's a good reminder of who's a statesman and who's a huckster. And
the word was sincerity.
The word is sincerity. I mean, I missed it. I guess today he got angry because people weren't doing what he wanted over there. Is that right?
Well, yeah, everything he has done in the past bit has been, as you say, as a measure of something of popularity. I got higher ratings, I got more views, I got this and that.
Or grievance.
Everything. Yeah. I mean, he's a tweeting machine, only outrivaled by Mike Lee. But his idea of diplomacy or action is to, Mr. Putin, please stop your bombing of Ukraine, in a text sent at 3 a.m, which, the guy's eating breakfast in Moscow at that time. He's like, I'm not listening to this shit. Right. And he didn't. And then it was, okay, was he called Netanyahu, Benji, or I don't know, some
Bibi.
Bibi. Yeah, so like, don't do it, you'll be sorry. And then to the Iranian, government, you better back down. Who does this? Nobody. So yeah, he does send the text that says don't bomb. Then he does, which stories aren't flattering right now coming out. And if you are a historian of any kind, you kind of know that this is not good for history. I mean, to have your president being quickly disabused of the truth, him telling the truth, by your own intelligence department saying, right. No, we don't need to do this now. There's no reason to, which upon he said of Tulsi Gabbard, well, she's wrong.
And that's
the person that he hired as one of the best, right? She's wrong. Don't talk to her anymore. They dropped the bombs, these bunkerbusters, that were only the result of, first, of a diversionary tactic at the highest level, probably didn't involve Hegseth, that sent diversionary B-2 bombers in the opposite direction to like spook China, that were not under stealth, so they could see them coming. So everybody's talking about them going that way. Meanwhile, the stealth guys go the opposite direction. 7 bombers. They drop their bombs as they are supposed to do. I'm sure these guys are brilliant pilots and all that kind of stuff. Get it? And they dropped it right precision where it's supposed to go, and it didn't do the damage they thought it would do. Just as you said, because as you said, we usually, even like in war zones, you send in intelligence or you send in a team to assess the damage. That had never happened. He said, "Oh, it's gone," because it has the name bunkerbuster, I suppose.
Well, the other thing about it is it's even the diversionary tactic. We Americans are really bad at this, and we think everybody else is stupid and we're the only smart one. Nobody really believed that he was going to give them 2 weeks to do what he wanted to do.
No way. No.
He doesn't even think that way. I mean, that's not his thought process. But you get to the bigger point about not just about him and his reality show mentality about how things are done. It is that this is serious business. I mean, people died in that attack. Lots of people died. They're human beings just like you and I. We may disagree with them. I mean, I have no portfolio to argue for Islamic jihadists and Lebanon who supports them. I don't. I mean, if they got what they deserved here, it was simply their misfortune because it wasn't planned, and there has been no plan. And the other Arab countries in that area are happy that America's taken Lebanon on, even if it's briefly, and they're not unhappy that Israel is kicking their ass in this war. But they're not willing to come forward and talk about it openly because, like a lot of us in this country are afraid of Trump, they're afraid of the people in Lebanon. And my point is simply this.
Do you mean Iran when you say that? Or
I said Lebanon. I meant Iran.
Yeah. That's all right.
The reason I have Lebanon on my mind is I spoke to a friend from Lebanon who was talking to me about what's going on there, given what's going on in the Middle East. But the point is this, is none of this is diplomacy. None of this is going to stop anything. It's going to be a small blip on the scale until we sit down with everybody to discuss this. And the United Nations was intended for that purpose. And America, post Ronald Reagan, has done everything they can to undermine the United Nations so that we can stop this type of activity by Iran, by Netanyahu, and by Donald Trump and people like them, so that they can make a decision. A war in the Middle East is in no one's interest. And the saddest part of it is the people that are dying there are primarily people that are voiceless.
Oh yeah, and it's always that way. It's been that way in every war. But here's what led us into that little segue was that he is so smart that he said today in a tweet. No, this was live on TV. He said live on TV that neither Iran nor Israel, meaning Bibi, know what the fuck they're doing. Okay, these guys have been at each other's throats since well longer than, when did we start measuring time with a clock?
Wow.
So between religious animosity, territorial animosity, cultural, you name it, all kinds of stuff, the Middle East has been a hotbed forever. If anybody has experience fighting the Persians, it's my DNA.
Sure.
I mean, I had the DNA test. I got old Greek DNA on the mainland. I got older Minoan, Phoenician, Cretan, that whole region DNA on the other side, which means those are my cousins because they married each other back and forth. Alexander went all the way to Afghanistan.
Sure.
And so we're going to find out, by the way, you and I are cousins too, because, other Italians came this way, right? So we're cousins too.
Well,
but
no,
the point is it's the people on all these wars that are just the troopers that fight. The generals call the shots, but at least Alexander was a good warrior. I mean, he fought with his guys. He didn't tweet his intent.
No, you're right. I mean, and same with Julius Caesar. I mean, they went to fight in the East, and the Romans got their fannies beat a couple of times there, but they went and fought. And
well, the point is
they've been fighting in that area forever. Is the point.
Well, they do know what they're talking about,
right? They do,
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And one right or both wrong. They know a little bit more about that region than Trump does, and Trump's only connection to that area is a financial, selfish one. Not like he says he wants peace. That just is a tangential aside from whatever he can personally gain out of having a relationship through Jared Kushner with Saudi Arabia, through something that he may get out of the beachfront property in Palestine,
Well, he's the deal maker. I mean, he's supposedly there to make the deal. So what did he get out of this deal?
Nothing.
I mean, no. Well, I mean, maybe Bibi will give him a signed copy of the Ten Commandments by Moses. And Trump will buy it as the truth. I mean, he's got
because he got something. He's got nothing.
Got something. Yeah, I know. Well, he'll be able to put the Trump Tower in Palestine.
That would be a deal. We would understand the deal, right? That would be a deal.
I mean, he is. I don't know what else he could get.
What did he get from Putin?
I don't know. I would ask for. I'd ask for Vladivostok. It's frozen in the winter.
Yeah.
But it's a really good spring, summer.
If you're
and
a deal
fall.
maker, you're going to shoot for Vladivostok.
I'm not gonna do anything because I'm gonna back off of giving Ukraine armaments. But I need to show something. So I want Vladivostok. I don't know. Well,
he asked. What do you want from Zelensky?
He wanted all of their precious metals
because it was a deal.
It was a deal.
It wasn't about peace.
It's a deal, and that's why it's so phony. And it is. I guess I apologize for joking about it because it isn't a joke. I mean, this is serious business. As you say, the problems in the Middle East are beyond the ken of most of us. Even those of us who have read a little bit about it, know a little bit about history. This is a difficult situation, and it demands more than some blowhard telling other people that they're fucking everything up. That place has been fucked up for a long time. We have our part in it. The Russians do. The Chinese do. The Saudis do. There are a lot of people who have their part in it. But saying that you're going to come in and solve this, as he said he would, within a few weeks of him being president, is the type of idiocy that leads to people taking advantage of him. And that's another point that needs to be made. These guys, Netanyahu and Khomeini, they're smart men. You may disagree with them. They know what they're doing. They know where their support is and where it isn't. And so these guys look at him and they can work him like a 3-card Monte dealer dealing with a kid off the
It looked like that would be the case with Trump when he first ran, but every one of those American cowards that ran against him in 2016 are now on the bootlicking side. Meanwhile, you're right. There's no upside for Putin or Khomeini or Bibi or Macron or the guy in England, anybody to be his buddy, because they figured him out. They can just go, he's full of shit.
Right.
And they just sit back and laugh behind his back. People say, oh, make America great. All right. Start by not putting your cameras on this guy when the other rest of the world is snickering at him behind his back. Because they never saw that with any American president in the past. When you have a group of the most powerful men and women in the world, and they all snidely snicker at our own president, and this is not the American strength move picture that sells to me anyway. But somehow, the Trump supporters just go along with it, and he's just our guy.
Well, intriguingly enough, I mean, some of his supporters are pushing back because they oppose the, quote, neocon idea of being the world's policeman.
It's Marjorie Taylor Greene, right?
Marjorie Taylor Greene, and a few of those people are pushing back. We'll see whether or not they have the guts to continue to stand up with it. I mean, I tend to agree with her. I don't believe in isolationism, but I do believe that America doesn't have to take the lead in everything. I think, again, I believe that that's a world power. I think that's what the world does. I believe that that's what the League of Nations and the United Nations were made for. But it will be interesting to see if they continue to stand up after this week.
Well, when Marjorie Taylor Greene, absolutely in his corner, but she still is, by the way, she's being kind of like cautious about it. Well, I'm against him on this one, but he's still my guy. I still love Trump, which is really all of what Trump always ran on. Not anything that Trump did, but what it really means is he's not Biden, that he's not Obama, he's not Hillary, he's not Kamala. That's what his whole thing was. He never ran on anything of any real, substantive thought, backed up with anything of, and here's the latest report or research or data. It was always, well, Biden was screwed up. Biden ruined America. They brought on all these immigrants and all that stuff. So Marjorie, while she might criticize him, still would take Trump over anything else, right? That's what I mean.
I understand that. I mean, I don't expect there to be a split in the Republican Party. I do feel, however,
the guy's peeling away, though, and it isn't the Republican. I maintain the Republican Party is dead.
Well, you're
It's
right.
the Trump party.
Okay, so my point on that is that I got to give credit when people take an opposing view to power, and she did that, and so I'm gonna give her credit for that. We'll see what happens.
That's an interesting point. I'm not unwilling to give her credit for that either, nor are you. I'm waiting to see the first time somebody in MAGA gives somebody on the Democratic side, or Biden for protecting your 401ks, or Obama for health insurance, saying thank you.
Well, they're not going to do that now, but I mean, they wouldn't have done it then either, because we don't have political parties now. We have talking point parties, and it's both of them. I haven't seen any real strength from the Democratic Party over the issue of what's happening in Iran either. I mean, there are some talking heads that are out there, but they too aren't saying, well, maybe we could have done something better when we had 4 years of power ourselves. I don't know. I just think I think we may be beyond that. We've got to recapture it.
Well, this might be the one, even the Proud Boys, and I think it's Tario, I think he's the head of them, he said, fuck this shit. Meaning, what are you doing over there, Donald? We're behind you, and now you're doing this. We didn't bargain for this as your support base.
We'll see. We'll see.
That's
what
his
happens.
quote.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk a little bit about where.
Isn't it hard not to talk about that guy, though?
Well,
let's get on to anything else, or try, but I'm sure we'll circle back.
No, I think, we ended last week. We talked so much about Mike Lee. We can't give up on Mikey. We got to talk a little bit about him. The LDS Church finally did, through the Deseret News, step up to the plate a little bit. They discounted his statements about the assassinations in Minnesota.
What did you see there? You were in the backyard. 10 days later of after the assassination?
I'll tell you what. I brought something to just read. I won't read a lot of it, but it's in the Minnesota Star Tribune, and it's an actual paper that you can hold. And it was it's a daily paper still, so you can get it. This is from Monday of this week, and it's about the shootings in Minnesota. And the man that shot the man that shot the healthcare worker, Brian Thompson, okay, he was from Maple Grove, which is in Minnesota, and shot by a man named Luigi Mangione.
Right, that was on the streets of
New York. He was a healthcare person, CEO, and killed him, shot him, executed him. And this is just a short article by a man by the name of Jeff Day from the Minnesota Star Tribune. It's well written. This guy clearly knows what he's talking about. I'm going to just read a little bit. He talks a little bit about it, and then he says that the shootings that have been happening like this, and the 2 people that were killed in Minnesota that were politicians, he calls them violent populism. and that's a term that is being employed now in this type of thing. And this is what one of the people that he quotes in the article has to say. Robert Pape is a University of Chicago professor who has studied political violence for 30 years. In the past 5 years, he has said the dynamic of that violence has changed in America, and Minnesota is its epicenter. He referred to this time as the era of violent populism. In a phone interview, Pape said that the acts attributed to Mangione and Boltler, who's the man who is charged with killing those two Minnesota politicians, are exactly that. They're violent populism. And he goes on to explain that all of these people that have done this type of act are people that have written manifestos. They want them found after they're dead or after they're arrested. They want them to be read. They feel like they are somehow saviors of the things that they believe in. And it isn't just a thing on the right, it's a thing on the left. It harkens back kind of to the Unabomber, the Weatherman in our era during Vietnam.
Zodiac.
The Zodiac killer, also to people, the people that killed Malcolm X. It is in our DNA to a degree, but the point that I wanted to make in reading this or just referencing it to people is assassinations are not something that we don't know about in this country. For us, of our age, JFK being assassinated was a turning point in what we were about.
That just started the clock, didn't it?
And it really did. And I'll never forget when Mr. Haycock came into fourth period mathematics. He had walked out, came back in. A wonderful man, country guy, great math teacher. Lost on me because math is not my forte, but he walked in and he was literally white, and he said, President Kennedy has been shot, and as a result he is dead. That's how he announced it to us. He himself was shocked. And our world, this world of the 50s that so many people now look back as Opie and Andy, and it was a good era for us. We were fortunate because of unions in large part and hardworking families and grandparents and all that. It really ended there in a way. It did.
I heard it from Marty Muhar, a fellow Gospich friend of yours.
My godfather's son.
Oh, really? You're from That's your neck of the woods. It was lunch period, Copperton Elementary, and when lunch was over, most of us kids had lunch at home. I mean, in school, you took your Flintstones, sandwich box, whatever they were called. Marty went home because he lived close enough home. So he saw it on TV or saw something, and he walked in just as Marty would. What's up, Marty? And he said, they shot Kennedy. That's how he said it then. Mm-hmm. He's a couple years older than me. And that's the first time I heard that they did ever used. He didn't say anything else. They shot Kennedy. And to this day, I'm still stunned that people still go, they are against us. They did this, they did that, with no concrete evidence of any one person. And it's been a useful term ever since I was in fifth grade or so, whatever it was.
I mean, those are things that you don't remember. And so we're in a point now where people are killed because of who they are relative to political movements. And I mean, we gotta think about that. I mean, we really gotta think about that as Americans. I mean, we aren't a banana republic, and there's violence in the DNA of America. There's no doubt about it. And if that's how we're responding, Donald Trump, someone attempted to assassinate him. I'm up in the air about that all the time. The reporting on that, in my judgment, has been really pretty poor and very shallow. But I'll accept what I've read about. Somebody tried to kill him simply because they disagreed with him politically. Just like Abraham Lincoln was executed.
We can't let it be.
It can't be let go. And it's got to be talked in reasoned, measured tones about. We can't do this, folks. It's your coach or your favorite teacher coming in and saying, you know what, we don't do that. And you respect them enough to believe it. I don't expect you to respect me or John enough to believe that. I expect, however, that you'll give that some thought. Somebody was killed because of their beliefs. That's it. That's all.
An innocent guy in this case.
And innocent people.
Just sitting in the stands.
We don't here, but
here too,
yeah. But I'm talking about in Minnesota. I mean, these are politicians, and two of them were wounded. We can't accept that.
Then that makes what Mike Lee said all the more egregious in retrospect. And he's still not apologized.
Nope. And he's not going to apologize, and I'll tell you why. It goes back to what we started with. Because they're afraid of the strong man of their party, because you're right, it isn't the Republican Party. The Republican Party of Robert Taft, or even Robert La Follette, or
Eisenhower, Reagan, Bush.
Eisenhower or Reagan. Somebody tried to kill Ronald Reagan and assassinate. John Lennon was assassinated. We've got people being killed, and you want to just say, come the F on, America. That's not us. That can't be us. And it's all because of people like Mike Lee, to get back to him. It is like him, who can't get up, hasn't courage enough to stand up and say, I was wrong, I really was. The Deseret News, in a sense, apologized for me because of my beliefs, but I was wrong. He can't do it, and a guy like Donald Trump couldn't do it either.
Well, what I didn't see in the Deseret News, I'm happy it was in the D News, right? I mean, because actually, it didn't happen immediately either.
No.
It took basically half the country saying, hey, you Utah. The fallout from Lee wasn't just on Lee. It hit every Utah. It hit everybody, that Republican or Democrat in Utah. It hit the religion of Utah. It hit everything in the West. He did some serious damage to everything around us. And only after they were chastened, like, hey, what kind of a Christian church are you that can't even tell one of your members to shut the F up? And they did say, well, he was wrong. He did this and he shouldn't have happened. But Mike Lee himself didn't say anything. One other point. It wasn't signatured by the president of the church in the Deseret News, and I don't really know if that's really a protocol thing that happens there. It is their ownership, but it didn't say speaking in that voice. It just simply happened in their forum.
Right. Well, I think that one of the things about that is, I mean, we got to give credit for credit's due. I know President Nelson, my ex-husband, that's what I call my wife's ex-husband, David Nelson is his first cousin.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and I've met President Nelson, and I knew him as Dr. Nelson. I mean, he is really a good guy. I cannot believe in my heart, knowing him and knowing about him as I do, that he would ever.
Oh no, I'm sure that that's the case.
And Dallin Oaks, who's in the first presidency, was a Supreme Court justice that I appeared in front of. I have immense respect for him as a man. I'm sure there are certain political things we disagree on. I know Dallin Oaks would not acknowledge that. But so maybe it is a protocol thing. But I think it was good that the organ.
Let's just call one more fracture that we can finally say finally. Even if they didn't go all the way to the top, they didn't necessarily need to. It was in the forum. It was a big deal to be in the Deseret News.
No, it wasn't, and also the Tribune, Gordon Monson, who's really the spokesman for the LDS Church of the Salt Lake Tribune.
Actually, I like him better in that role than I did as a sports writer.
I do too. I mean, I think he's a good guy at heart.
He's way honest this way. The other way, he's always trying to be smarky or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
anyway, let's go on.
And he's a BYU guy, so
that doesn't score many points.
But the thing is that they did come out and do that, and I think that's good. But part of the reason is if you have to have a committee meeting to decide to condemn what Lee said, then you're not thinking right. And that's what a lot of people that have finally come out and talked about Mike Lee being a knucklehead for saying that and not apologizing. Then you have to have a committee meeting to make a decision to fight back against that. Then you ought to look at yourself a little bit. Finally, a lot of this has to do with money too. It always has to do with money. You know, we got to come out and talk about this because by God, people may not come to Utah if they think that he's speaking for Utah. And so that's part of it too.
Well, there you go, Governor Cox, there's your cue.
No, I think with Mike Lee, I think we'll wait for him to talk. We're going to talk about this occasionally until he apologizes. And I would like to start people send Mike Lee the Beatitudes. Get it out of the book, get it out of the Bible, and Xerox it off and send it to him. He needs to read them because he doesn't understand at all.
He doesn't. Well, I won't even discredit him by saying he hasn't read it fully because most people haven't fully read the Bible, but 99% of the world doesn't go around preaching that they have read it and they understand it fully. Well, guys like Lee that forecast that and hang by it too, live by it, die by it. He's not even an interesting guy. He's a horribly mean, not well thought through guy that certainly looks like something you can buy and sell with not very much, right?
I'll tell you, Senator Klobuchar.
Let him have it.
Let him have it, and that was in the Minnesota papers as well. I mean, she let him have it, and I know sometimes you look at me. I wish you people could see when I do this. John looks at me like my wife and everybody else who knows me. But Klobuchar's a Croat. That's a Croatian
I didn't know that.
name.
No,
yeah.
I'm happy for that.
No, but what her name means in Croatian?
Well, it's not squarehead.
No. But it is.
You know what I mean?
No, I do know what you're saying. That could get you killed in some places. You understand that? That's kind of.
I do know
that. Is a.
So she's not
no,
that.
No, she's not. Klobuchar means hatter.
What?
Hatter. Hatter. So some.
Hatter. It's Klobuchar.
Klobuchar. So her name, somewhere in her history, somebody made hats, and that's what her name means in Croatian. It is also a word that is Bosnian, Suriname, and also Serbian, but primarily Croatian.
Well, there you go.
But I mean, she is also a lawyer. She was the district attorney of Hennepin County, prosecuted people, and ran that county attorney's office, actually. Apparently a very good lawyer. I like her, frankly, and this is before I knew she was a hunky. I mean, I really.
I like that word too.
I know. Well, I can say it, I guess. Yeah. But I liked her beforehand because I thought she was always articulate when she was running for president. I liked her.
No, every time I see her in a Senate hearing, every time I see her in front of the cameras, she didn't perhaps have the real power or the camera power, because it is optics now.
Yeah, a lot.
And Trump's right in that regard, but he just doesn't. He thinks that's the game he's in. He thinks this is a reality TV show, but he's actually got a finger on the world pulse here. Unfortunately,
there's some truth to that as our observations go.
But Amy's a bright woman, articulate. Now I understand why. But it does bring up the point. We've learned 2 Croatian words. If you can remember to send us from Bingham Canyon, the one that Ron and I will not speak on air currently, you'll win 2 tickets to the beer fest.
If you know the word. That and it wasn't and it is actually a Croatian word, but it is the word that everybody, whether you were Puerto Rican or Mexican or Greek or Japanese or Italian or Croat or Serbian or whatever up there, if you got called this particular
I was in a cab in Chicago. I called to this guy, I've grown up my whole life, and I just know when you use the word, it's not good. And you would get soap in your mouth if you used it. And I never really knew and it probably's got 10 interpretations.
Well, I told you what, we won't tell it. We're not going to tell what
No, we're not going to tell. But I'm in a cab, and the guy said, I can hear his accent. I said, where are you from? And he goes, something like Dubrovnik or something, or it could have been Belgrade, I don't know, but he was a Slav. I said, you ever heard the word? And I said the word. He hit the brakes. I thought my head about goes through the window. He says, what's wrong with you? You crazy? I'm not going to get out of my cab.
I know.
I go, what the hell? I said, I just want to know what it means. And that was that.
No, there you go. So if you can send John what you think that word is, then
you win 2 tickets to the John@cityweekly.net, 2 tickets, VIP tickets.
Okay.
Utah Beer Festival. Tell us, let's talk about the Basques.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've got to talk
again
about somebody that we mentioned before. Why don't you go there?
Well, I'll lead it, but I grew up. We've mentioned the Osoro family several times. I grew up with Terry Osoro. She was my age. And then she had a cousin younger than her, was 1 year behind me at Bingham, Jerry Osoro, one cousin older than us by 2 years, Sharon Osoro. These are different fathers. Another Osoro, Debbie Osoro, another cousin. There were 4 Osoro brothers in Copperton. All had kids at Bingham High School. And, the Osoro family, they were Basque. And there were other families at Sasita, I think Garamendi, Sabala.
Yeah.
And there were others. But Larry, who was my brother's age, he graduated with my brother from Bingham. I didn't know he was older. Terry, my age, was like the accidental Osoro in that family because all of her family are all 10 years older than her or whatever. But Larry, I always knew who Larry was, had his career elsewhere. If you ever go to Living Traditions, he's the guy, maybe he still is, I know he was, selling the churros at the Basque town.
But I want to stop you.
Yeah.
Terry ought to write her autobiography, and it ought to be called The Accidental Osoro.
The Accidental Osoro. Yeah, all right, I'll tell her. Well, she'll hear this. She listens to this, but and she'll agree that she is, by the way. But Larry turned into not just a fine chef and cook. His son has climbed Mount Everest.
Really?
He's put the flag, the Basque flag, up there. Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
We got to get a picture of that.
Yeah. Well, Larry can send it. But Larry turned into one hell of an artist, and he did this after the age of 60, I believe. I think he was like in art class and a talented art student and so on, but he didn't do this as a career. And then 60, he goes, I need a hobby. And if you've seen his art, well, you have. I've seen some.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding? This is a lifetime of work to turn in art like that. How in the hell does he does it? And his sister told me, I had dinner with her. She lives in Pocatello now, her and her husband. I go, how'd he do it? And she goes, and not only that, he holds a brush a certain way. Nobody paints like that, and it's precision painting. If you see an eagle's eye and stuff, you go, oh wow, I can see the little red blood vessels in there.
I've seen some from my mother, but also, and he did one of my dad's work boots, but you sent me one just this last week.
So I guess it's most recent. He's also prolific. I don't know how he turns them out.
No, it's amazing. We're gonna see if he'll let us put a couple on.
Well, we won't ask because once they're on Facebook, Ron, they're public.
Yeah, but I mean.
Well, that's just the breaks. I mean, Larry's going to have to deal with it.
All right. Well,
we're just promoting the Osoro brand.
Okay, I'll represent him. All right.
Hey, go on. What else you got to say about you're related somehow, Godfather?
So, Sharon's mother, Joanna Massa.
Yeah.
Her sister, Jenya.
Okay.
Bob Cochran's wife.
Right. Okay.
Is my godmother. So
there you go.
Jenya, who's
and Bobby Cochran is your god brother, sort of.
Oh, kind of, I guess.
I guess that's right.
Yeah. And then Martin Muhar, or John Muhar, is my godfather. You just mentioned his dad, Marty, so it all goes around.
Okay, one last reference to Larry and the Osoro family, and I'm done for the day. It's this. We just bombed Iran. We did have the good sense to bomb a military site. Unprovoked, but we did it.
Yeah.
And you can make the case for or against. Nobody wants to see the nuclear Iran, I get it.
No.
But Larry, his blood comes from
Guernica.
And if you know the Picasso painting, it was the first time in history, because planes had barely been invented, but the German Air Army or Air Force with the Italians bombed a civilian population in Guernica.
Yeah. No.
And it was 1937, I think. And you go, holy crap, you can do this from the air and kill all these innocent people. 3 years later, or 40 or 41, I forget the year exactly, was the next one. It happened in Crete. And we are visiting Crete this September with our City Weekly group. But you can still go in the Chania region of Crete and see bombed out buildings 70 years later, 80 years later, from when the Germans did it there. Not nearly to the effect of Guernica, but still on civilians. Right. The Air Force base at Malame was small then, but the Germans needed to take it over because the Italians failed. There's a graveyard there. And if you visit it, it's one of the most it's unreal. I mean, 4,000 German soldiers, basically kids, because you can see there, here lies Hans, here lies,
with his date of...
Yeah, it was born in 1922 and died in 1941. And over and over and over. It's just, war is, I've seen German families sit there these 80 years later and stand over a grave and cry over somebody that they have zero connection to. But it's a family. And it's such a gut-wrenching thing to see. Both sides, you can say whoever you want to, won the war, but both sides are losers, always.
Always. I mean, it's the thing about it when you read about those things. I was when Kay and I were in France, we went to the city of Meaux, Meaux, and there is the World War, I think that's the right city, World War I museum. And you go through that, and it's so well done. I mean, they have replicas of underground trenches and stuff like that. But you see it and you read this stuff, thousands and thousands of people that were killed. People who talk about war like it's driving from here to Provo, or it's nothing. They are people, I'm sure, that haven't experienced war. When you read historical books about wars, it's stunning to understand the pain. There's a famous Jesuit priest. His name was Father Teilhard de Chardin. He was also a scientist, and he was one of the people that discovered Peking man. He was a anthropologist, very, very smart man, scientist, but he was also a Jesuit priest. In World War I, he was a chaplain, and he wrote letters from the war because he was on the front. He won the Croix de Guerre. It's hard to get this book. I've read it, and my copy of it is so underlined and all that stuff. He talks about the horror of war. He talks about it from an educated perspective, from a man of faith, man who believes that there is a God, that God exists. And yes, in a sense, God allows this to happen, but it's man that does this, because creation is something man can't do, but man can attempt to destroy creation. And this book, to his cousin Marguerite, it's just the letters that have been published, and there are explanations to some of the things. It is heartbreaking to see what he saw and come through it, and then not lose faith, but also want to show through his knowledge of science that we really can be good. We can learn stuff. We can grow if we put war aside.
Well, we got to stop talking about growing and stop about talking about being good and actually doing it. Okay. Ron, let's do this again next week.
Let's do it. We'll do it next Tuesday.
What is the 4th of July? Are we having a holiday here?
We are having a holiday. Next Tuesday is our 51st states anniversary. It's Canada Day.
Let's go.
Yeah, all right. So we'll celebrate Canada Day in our next Bingham Boys.
Let's do it.
All right. They just want to join America, don't they?
Everybody in Canada can't wait to be more highly taxed, give away their health care, drive on worse highways, and have all the luxury pleasures that we do, strip mall city.
Yeah, there you go. And not only that, listen to our president daily.
They can't get rid of they just can't stand that Carney's articulate, can they? Let's go.
All right. Thank you, John.